to the 50s and near 60. Now, as we get you into Sunday, we'll start to see a little more of a warm up happening, especially across the Central Plains. That's where we go 10 to 15 degrees above average, and everyone else probably gains about a degree or two as we see more warming happening. Boston for us, yeah, Friday's a chilly day compared to what we've had. You know, it's not going to be 80 like we saw last weekend, but 57 is actually average. And then we go back to a few degrees above average both Saturday and Sunday. Not unusual to be a couple of degrees above or below. Now, you're wondering, okay, well, are we going to see any of those 70s again? Boston for us, on average, today is the day for our average last day was 70 degrees. But last year it was all the way to the 18th. You know, New York City at this point in the season last year, we hadn't seen any more 70s. We typically don't here, so we'll see what happens with you, not the forecast. D.C., December last year. December was the last time we saw 70, so you know there is a chance, and always the trend seems to be warmer these days than not. Kansas City, here we go looking at your forecast here. Temperatures are going up above average. Average is about 60. So again, a little above is pretty typical. We'll get a little more than a little. By Sunday, we're 67, but it's not record-breaking or anything like that. We look at the pattern then, getting into next week, the first full week of November. Can you believe it already? Temperatures likely to be above average across the Southwest, the West Coast, parts of the Deep South, a little below average. You kind of get a sense of the pattern with the trough perhaps over the Great Lakes, the Northeast here. And then as we get you beyond that into mid-November, likely to see below average across the East, but a lot more above average middle and western part of the country, Greg. So this gives you a sense of the pattern we're expecting getting into the month of November. Can you believe we're here already?
Quite soggy time here for us for a while.
This is a bad time of year to get heavy rain because all of the leaves have come down and are clogging up the storm drains.
Yes.
So do your part. Keep those clear in your neighborhood. The cold is also not the only thing. Hounding had the devil cat. That's the witch cat.
Our weather producer, Jensen Burnett, also has like a pterodactyl as a pet or something like that, right, Jensen?
Pterodactyl. Crews deal with a brush fire that forced about 4,000 people to look for shelter outside their homes. The Highland Fire scorched about 3.5 square miles outside of L.A. and burned 10 buildings.
Fire officials say it was fanned by the Santa Ana winds. It was one of several fires in the state that prompted evacuation orders.
Well,
The Southeast, certainly one of the spots we're watching, but the West has been active as of late, especially because of these Santa Ana conditions that we've been dealing with the last 2 days. We've got 91 fires right now. You know, a number of spots in Colorado, Utah, that'll improve soon as we get into the snowy season.
Yes, that will definitely help us out.
And well, as long as we get it.
Right, exactly. It does look like we are in for a pattern that's going to be pretty wet coming into the west, so that should help. But look what we got here to the south. I mean, number of fires burning.
Yeah, and you know what? The conditions that we have right now are setting up for the risk of more or existing ones getting worse. We have red flag warnings throughout central and southern Louisiana, a lot of Mississippi, most of Alabama and half of Georgia, and all of the Florida Panhandle, too.
Yeah, so conditions is really ripe for fires to get going. Dry conditions out there that are in place. Look what we've got in terms of the fire potential. It's elevated here across right along the Gulf coastal zone, and then sliding your way up into a bit of South Carolina.
I was thinking about it last night because a common thing to do is sit out, make a fire if you have one of those portable fire pits, you know, in your driveway for Halloween as the kids come by here. Just thinking how, you know, the fire danger really is high. Luckily, no issues that I heard about.
Yeah, so got to be sort of extra careful and vigilant when it comes to doing any kind of burning out there. All right, so wildfire conditions in the checklist here for us. Abnormally dry, we talked about that. Atmospheric moisture, we essentially have scoured all the moisture out across the south. Bit breezy out there, and getting into the temperatures here for us. We'll be warming up a little bit here over the coming days.
As we get into the weekend for sure. And we're not really going to bring in more moisture. Now, that north wind has been very gusty, and now especially down across the south, New Orleans, look at Destin, look at Tampa, that strong north wind bringing in the dry air, but also could be a problem if fires spark.
Yes, they will be able to spread pretty quickly. So there you see the wind gust forecast here for us. Again, still going up over 20 miles per hour here, right along a good chunk of the Gulf Coast here for a good portion of this afternoon.
Yeah, it's really not until we get into tonight that you see things kind of settle a little bit. But I will tell you, when the winds calm down like this, then it gets even colder.
Exactly. All right, how about dryness? Relative humidity, the forecast here for us. Look at some of these values again. We've got 20% in some cases here as we head on into our afternoon. Thursday, once again, getting into the afternoon hours, drying things out quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be the trend through the rest of the week, really, these really dry afternoons. Well, don't forget our question of the day. the day. We got some left in this one.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the now, because we are no doubt dealing with the cold that has helped to support some of that snow. I saw Muskegon. There were some areas around Muskegon, double digits.
Yeah, over 11 inches.
Woo.
All they needed was 8 to get to record snowfall, and they were 8.8, but they went beyond.
All they needed was 8.
Yeah, they went beyond. That's a lot, right? It's November, early November, and we've got the cold to go along with it. So
sure do.
We'll start with all that. I know you're wondering, how, is this here to stay? Not so fast. We're going to be watching for temperatures out there. Cold this morning, all the way into the deep south. Tomorrow morning will be chilly. In fact, it might be a little colder than today. For us in Nashville, we were 30 this morning. 28 degrees is where we're going tomorrow morning. But then by Friday, we're back up to the mid-30s, which still below average. And by Saturday morning, just a few degrees warmer than that. So you see the trend that is coming. In fact, that trend for everyone is going to be less cold. We've got temperatures today that are running below average for high temperatures for 242 million, and then into tomorrow, 213. And it's less below average, if that makes sense, right? So we're not going to be as far below average tomorrow. That sun will help a little bit. November's sun angle isn't that great, but it's certainly better than December's. Now, we look at temperatures right now. It is chilly out there in Wichita, Oklahoma City. We made it down to 24. Dallas, we are sitting at 34 right now. Cold start to your morning. A lot of you scraping off a little frost, perhaps, on those windshields out there. Now, the wind chill, though, makes it feel worse. I mean, it feels like it's in the teens across the plains. It feels like it's in the 20s here, all the way into the deep south, and even Asheville feeling like 17. That wind chill factor is real this morning. When you send the kids off to the bus stop, or maybe you're running some errands this morning here, you're going to want a coat. It is chilly out there. Heading to highs today, staying below average. A lot of 40s up there from the Great Lakes into the Northeast, and we'll struggle, but we'll get to the 50s in the south. 52 in Little Rock. Looks like Montgomery will make it to 59 here, but again, it's with the wind chill factor. It is going to be feeling a little bit chilly out there. And then one more cold night tomorrow morning. We're making again down into the low 30s, maybe upper 20s, and then a pattern change as we get into the end of the week, with the jet stream kind of flattening out a bit heading into the weekend. Alex?
Clouds
from the small mini size turn into a big problem. We're going to have to watch the Caribbean again, like sort of the points of origin show us that's an area of interest in November.
It is, and right now, the water temperatures in the Caribbean are at record levels throughout the basin. I mean, this is not just a small issue. The waters are actually warmer now than they typically are in the heart of the hurricane season in the Caribbean. So, yeah, maybe some places in the tropics have sort of now seen the influence of fall move in, not the Caribbean.
This shows us the point of origins going back to 1950 for all storms, hurricanes, tropical storms, etc. But there have only been 63 hurricanes going all the way back to the beginning, 1800s of record keeping. It does come down by the time we get to November, right? We don't typically see a lot of activity, but we can see some, so we can't rule it out.
And this is the thing that we say all year. Only takes one, right?
Yeah.
Only takes one.
Yeah, and this is sort of not just the Caribbean, but this, I think, basin-wide, the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico. You can see, Jen, to your point, and Alex, that this is really ramping down now. But, a couple of % of the season, it may not seem like much, but we just saw in that picture, there was a landfall last November 10th in Daytona Beach, Florida. It was significant damage.
Right. 3% is not zero.
Not zero.
Right. So there is still that potential, getting in. That's why the hurricane season runs all the way through the month of November. Now, again, mentioned Nicole. It was the latest in a calendar year that we had a landfall on the east coast of Florida.
Pretty remarkable stuff, right? I mean, you'd think that by this time of year, many places along the southeast coast and the Gulf of Mexico in particular, the water temperatures would be cooling, the air would be drier early November.
All right, well, so in terms of, where we are in this season, we have nothing threatening right now. We go back in time and we look at November landfalls. It's not common. How many did you say total?
6 total hurricanes.
6 total. Yeah.
So this map takes us back to the middle of not just the last century, but the
way back.
To the best we can reconstruct the history. There are only a few lines in there going back 160 years, so this is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, but still, that said, we'll keep an eye on it because we saw it happen last year, and we know that the Western Caribbean is going to be a hot spot this year. All right, well, coming up, You might be ready.
The other, and it's depending on how all the temperatures fare in the atmosphere. Who's going to get the snow? Who's going to get the rain?
Yep. All right. So this past one, it was a combination of, it was cold, so everybody got some snow chances, but where you had just the, little enhancements. That's where we got the big stuff, like in Muskegon, 11.3.
I mean, that's a significant snow. 11, double digits here for us before November. I think that's the key factor in this.
Right.
Before November, it's a rarity.
So it was a record daily snow. The 8.8 got up to record daily, and then that ended up being the record for the month.
Yes,
that's
for
surprising.
The entire month, exactly.
And the biggest so early in the season, I believe.
I think so.
I mean, yeah,
either
all
way,
the accolades.
Exactly, you got them. Yeah, because we just don't see a whole lot at this time of the year. Now, once we get into November, things start to change a bit, but this was a pretty significant snow for some of us. All right, let's take a look at what we may be looking forward to as we work our way on into next week. Disturbances coming on through midweek into the weekend here for us, and we'll see coming back into the northern plains, upper Midwest, that opportunity with another system to bring us some precipitation.
Okay, so let's show you how this plays out. You're getting into the weekend. This is the GFS model, and the models are different in terms of snow chances coming on in. We have got rain in Minneapolis. This is Saturday afternoon, heading through Wisconsin. Second system comes in, and then that moves a little farther south and maybe has, my voice gets really high. There's a lot of uncertainty with this one. I mean, the Euro is different.
It is. It is very different. So we'll have to see how these things can maybe get better aligned. But there's the European model's depiction of things here for us. Again, heading on to our Friday and Saturday. Not a whole lot of activity. Again, far northern tier, maybe scooting by. And then that next one, that's that second one that comes through. But you notice, not as far south. No. So basically right along the U.S.-Canadian border, and then tries to dive a bit farther south into the Great Lakes for early next week.
That kind of makes a little more sense based on the pattern changing, warming up a little bit more as we get into the weekend. So the amounts when it comes to moisture in general, total, is pretty light to moderate out there. But then focusing on where we could get some snow.
Absolutely. Looking at the GFS, again, has that kind of rainy issue a little bit farther on off towards the south. Now, snowfall, take a look at that. Here's the European models. Again, that was the one that was a little bit farther to the north. Pinpoints the heaviest snow, North Dakota, with moderate to heavy snow there.
And then the European model, or the GFS model coming in with looking at some more moderate snow, perhaps into South Dakota and Minnesota, where, by the way, Minneapolis, we picked up about 2 inches of snow, yesterday. So our first snow of the season has happened already.
And average is right around November 5th. The earliest in Minneapolis, September 24th. So not unheard of territory there for us.
Right, exactly. All right, let's get into the out there with some.
I don't know when she started doing them.
Yeah.
Always
every year it's November 1st. It seems early.
I'm going to say, Mariah, give it at least another week or two.
But I saw so many people, as Halloween was ending last night, taking down the decorations and putting up Christmas.
And I actually saw some of the Halloween decorations in. So it's like Halloween Christmas. I don't know what it is.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're here with you here on the Weather Channel through the mid-morning hours, getting you ready for the big events in your hood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast, where the chill is actually covering from coast to coast. We've got that cold front all the way down south through Florida now. Miami hit 91 yesterday.
Wow. Won't hit that today.
But the front came through then.
The front came through, and then it moved through the Gulf of Mexico, and is sort of all-time winds. Very fast winds are moving from the Gulf of Mexico into the Pacific. That sometimes can trigger tropical development, and we'll be watching that.
Wow, interesting. All right, we'll have to talk about that a little bit more.
We need a discussion for that one.
Yeah. All right, well, that, in addition to all the rain coming into the Northwest, atmospheric river season here is in full blast out in the Pacific Northwest.
It's going to be a soggy time. This is going to be one of those situations where you're like, all right, I just want to see the sun. Just give me sun for 3 hours.
Yeah, right.
You might have to travel. We've got more than 200 million Americans that... And plus, we had the cold. Let's take a virtual view of Little Rock. What a difference a few days will make here. Temperatures will get into the upper 40s today. Yes, that's as far as we're going. But you'll be able to bask in the 70s soon. We're going to be warming up out here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we are finding all across the east, and temperatures changing for the better, perhaps. We go from max in the low 50s today. A lot of your day is going to be spent in the 40s to 77 by Sunday. What a change coming in. So this cold snap isn't lasting. We're going to see a change in our jet stream pattern by the time we get to the weekend. So instead of the dip that we have, allowing the cold air to come all the way in. The jet stream flattens out, and really that's going to allow us to return to average or even a little bit above for some of us. But we'll see that, I think, across Colorado. Your snow is going to be gone. We warm temperatures back up. We'll see it across the heartland. Temperatures by Saturday in the upper 60s, into parts of Kansas. Look at Wichita. And then in Texas, we're back to the mid to upper 70s. So that chill in the air this morning here, that is going to be long forgotten. Temperatures warming up even more on Sunday. In fact, that warm up spreading to the east. We'll feel it in the mid-Atlantic as well. Temperatures in Boston up here in the Northeast on Friday only going to a high of 57, which actually is exactly average. Then we warm up a few more degrees by Saturday and Sunday, heading up to 60. A little above average. Nothing unusual for this time of year. Now for Boston, you're wondering, are we done with 70? What about New York City? Well, on average, yes. This would be about the last days that we see 70 on average. But last year in Boston, it was the 18th of November. New York City was October, so we'll see. D.C., though, it was December of last year for our last 70-degree day. So you're thinking there's still a chance. And there is. Now, Kansas City, we definitely have a chance this weekend even. We're going to see those numbers getting back up to the upper 60s. That's your Saturday forecast, going above average, which is 60. And then wondering about that, hey, do we have any more 70s left in us? Well, we're in Kansas expecting to be above average as we look for the first full week of November. A little below average around the Great Lakes. The pattern is likely to stay warm as we get there through mid-November across the west and the middle part of the country. The east is where we could see some below average ratings by this time as we see perhaps more of a dip in the jet stream getting into this time frame, Greg. But hard to believe that we're already getting that forecast into mid-November.
I know, right? It's
rivers coming in. Yeah, it can help us out, but it can also be a bit hurtful too.
And this is the time of year when all the leaves are off the trees or coming down off the trees, and they clog up storm drains.
Yes.
So keep those cleared. Well, the cold is not the only thing hounding the south.
Just say this may end up being the winner of throwback picture of the day, going back to 1955.
I know.
That's
I got to go
impressive.
take a closer look and see what people dressed up as. What was, the costume.
I'm still thinking about that dog with jalapenos and grilled onions on its back. Oh my gosh, that'd be so.
It's been a rough time in California. Riverside County's fire chief suspending open burning as crews deal with a brush fire that forced about 4,000 people to look for shelter outside of their homes. The Highland Fire that scorched about 3.5 square miles. That's just outside of L.A. and burned 10 buildings.
Fire officials say it was fanned by the Santa Ana winds. It was one of several fires in the state that prompted evacuation orders.
Well, as you can see, the wildfire season becoming a year-round problem.
Meteorologist Carl Parker breaks down the conditions sparking flames in no matter what the season. Cigarette butts, all the things that can spark fires. You know, it's like 89 or 90% of fires are human caused.
Yeah, exactly. And not necessarily caused because of an arsonist.
Right.
But by accident.
Well, right now we've got 91 active fires across the country. There is a number in the west. With these next couple of systems coming into the Pacific Northwest, well placed because we have some dry conditions up there. California, of course, the Santa Anas, the southeast. It's just been a tough summer and fall.
It has. It absolutely has. So those are some of the active fires. There's quite a few of them here in parts of the South, and it becomes problematic because the conditions are ripe for more fires to get going and spread quickly. Red flag warnings that are in play, southern half of Louisiana, all the way through Alabama, you're in there, Georgia, and a bit of Florida, the Panhandle.
Yeah, so we've got that critical fire risk, and the fire potential is elevated here today across south parts of Louisiana, all through Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia. You know, the concern is that the winds are still pretty gusty across this area.
Absolutely. So fanning any flames that get going, so that could spread pretty quickly out there for us as well. And we'll have to watch over the next couple of days, even though it is chilly now. Surface temperatures, they will be warming up over the coming days.
And that means once you get to the afternoon, the relative humidity will drop off here. And the air is very dry. We're going to see winds gusting. Right now, they're already gusting to nearly 30, Atlanta, Myrtle Beach, all the way down to Tallahassee, gusting over 25 to 30 miles per hour today.
So a bit of a breezy day on tap here for us. We'll deal with this through a good portion of the afternoon. It's really not until we get into tonight that we do start to see those winds slacking off.
Yeah, all right. So be careful out there.
Well, time now to...
So it's challenging.
Yeah, so we'll be fine-tuning that. Just know there's another chance that we could see winter roll right back in.
Happy November, everybody.
Yeah, we are rolling right along through the year, streaming through. Halloween is a thing of the past now. It's Christmas, apparently, because Thanksgiving doesn't matter. We just skip over things nowadays.
I just decorated yesterday for Halloween, and I'm leaving it out till Thanksgiving because it's pumpkins. Right?
Yeah, what do we do with
pumpkins?
the pumpkins?
Are a November thing, yeah.
Are they?
I think so.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Right?
Yeah, at least
You know,
halfway
like
through November.
The whole cornucopia stuff. Cornucopia of weather out there. It really not. We don't have a lot. We have a lot of clear skies. And we have a lot of cold, and that's where I want us to start this morning. We've got temperatures that have dropped down to near record levels, even to record-breaking in a few spots. Nashville, we made it down to 30 this morning. Tomorrow may be colder. 28 is the number that we're heading towards. Average low is 44, so we do stay below average the next 2 mornings, but you notice how we warm up a little bit, so not quite as bad by Friday and Saturday, and your daytimes actually through the afternoons will be much better. But we are below average for 242 million today, mainly across the eastern half of the country. Tomorrow, it's only 213 million, and the amount that you are below average is less. So not as cold out there tomorrow, and the weekend even better. The temperatures for you right now still in the 20s. Oklahoma City and Wichita. Look at North Platte. I mean, look, we started this morning with a lot of folks feeling like they were in the teens. Still feels like that in Des Moines and Wichita. Asheville still feels like 18 degrees. It still feels like it's in the 20s thanks to the wind chill factor. In Atlanta, feels like 40 best case scenario down here all the way down to the Gulf Coast here. I'm betting some of you even feel a little chillier out there, especially if you're in the shade. Now, we're looking at temps today heading up to the mid-50s across the south. Be a struggle, but we'll get there. But a lot of spots not getting out of the 40s, like up around the Great Lakes, and especially anyone that has snow from yesterday. East of Cleveland, so you got about 2 or 3 inches. Yep, it's going to be a chilly one for you today and tomorrow morning as temps drop down again into the low 30s. This dip in the jet stream has been the culprit, but once we see this flatten out a bit, and that's once we get into the weekend, we are going to see a change in the pattern. And you see, once we get to Saturday and Sunday, temps will warm back up, going either to average or above average into your Saturday and Sunday, back to the upper 60s or even 70s, Alex.
All right, there's that.
I think a lot of people kind of write off the hurricane season.
For lots of good reasons,
Yeah.
right? The air is cooler, it's drier, it's more stable. It's also windier aloft, and there are a lot of reasons that the precursors for tropical cyclones don't exist in the same way as they did in August and September. So there's a lot of factors pushing against hurricane development this time of year.
But yet, we've seen them.
It's happened.
And these are the storm origins, hurricanes and tropical storms, going back to 1950.
Yeah, so it certainly happens. It certainly, there's the tick down, I would say, in terms of the activity, but it can happen. And when we look at this sort of the scope going even beyond 1950, going back to the 1800s, there's only about 63 November hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot, but there have been a few.
It doesn't happen every year.
Yeah.
We had Nicole last year, but then you had to go back to 1985 for the previous U.S. landfall.
Yes.
So, I mean, you get a sense of sort of the space and time in between when we see this kind of thing. But you look at just the difference between October and November, it, does come down. But October doesn't have a high chance either. And yet, we sort of see that as one of the months that threaten us.
It's encouraging to see these numbers, but we also know that there are parts of the tropics that are still feeling summer-like warmth in the atmosphere, and also summer-like warmth in the ocean. Because right now, the Caribbean basin as a whole is warmer than it's been this time of year on record, and it's also very close to what it typically is in midsummer. So there are parts of the tropics that are still immune for now from the fall feel.
Yeah. Now, Nicole, going back to this from last year, I mean, this is the latest.
Don't necessarily worry about a tropical cyclone. Well, it can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. Going back to the landfalls again. Not many, but they've happened. So let's look at what we got going on right now, because you mentioned the conditions over the Western Caribbean. One thing is the sea surface temperatures. The other is just, is there moisture in place? That's what this shows.
Clearly there is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of that. So parts of the tropics are still kind of in that late summer mode, and this is going to bring very heavy rain to Central America. It may not turn into a tropical cyclone, but it's going to bring certainly impacts and potential for flooding as well.
Yeah, and so that's why there is an area of investigation right here.
There it is, hanging out there now just south of the island of Hispaniola. 50-50 shot that it could turn to our next tropical cyclone.
It's very unorganized looking right now.
It's got a ways to go. It's got some things to overcome. Looking at that satellite picture right now, I can tell you there's a lot of vertical shear over that. The thunderstorms aren't real coalesced near the middle. But as it moves in this direction toward the west, maybe the atmosphere gives it a brief window before moving inland.
You think the front that came through kind of keeping it at bay, though, to the south?
It's not going to move north out of the Caribbean. It's not going to be a Gulf of Mexico issue for us.
All right, that's always key to know. Well, you might be ready to get rid of your Halloween decorations. Some of you were making snowmen yesterday, or maybe you were making Halloween men.
Right, exactly. I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
We saw it add up there in Muskegon, 11.3 inches of snow.
Record snow for the date. Record snow for the month of October. Earliest or
Yes.
biggest snow.
Prior to November 14th. Something like
mid-November.
that. Yeah, so this was legit.
Yeah.
This was legit for some of us here for you. Even the spots that didn't get double digits, you got the Finland area there in Minnesota, 7.2, and even in Ohio, a bit over 6 inches.
I mean, the lake helped, and
Yeah.
you could see it. Like, it was western lower Michigan. It was the east side of Cleveland, definitely the lake effect areas.
Absolutely. Well, here comes the next round that tries to sneak on in, heading on into the weekend. We'll be watching systems coming across the kind of northern tier of the country. Couple to track. So let's start off GFS American model here, late Friday into, or say late Thursday into Friday. And you can kind of see scooting along here with some showers, mostly rain. And then right along the Canadian border, we do see a little bit of snow with that first one.
The next one comes in, and this one has a better chance, based on the GFS, of maybe bringing some snow further south, but it's not clear cut. I mean, you see how it's kind of mixed in with the pink indicating a mix of rain and snow.
That heads east, and we dry out heading into at least our Monday night. Now, the European model will start you off again late Thursday into Friday, and we can spreading in a few showers here right across that far northern tier, but then that next batch comes in, and that's, again, that second batch, that's the one that brings in the best chance for some snow, again, right along the U.S.-Canadian border, not as far south as what the American model is doing.
It's too soon to call it, you know? I mean, there's too much uncertainty with models in terms of, just time, too. We still have a few more days to get through, and it's the second system that's coming in.
Exactly.
So a lot is going to happen.
No doubt about it here. So we'll be fine-tuning this to the rainfall and snowfall forecast in the coming days. Quick look at the European bullseye there in northern portions of North Dakota, while the GFS brings the snow a bit farther south.
Okay. Well, we'll get to all that and keep our cookies. But
now it makes sense.
It's, it's spooky season. So we're asking you to show us your costumes. Bonus points, of course, for the weather-related ones. You guys have been sending in the pictures. We've been enjoying seeing them. We want to share some of them here. And let's see, what do we got coming up here in terms of pictures?